day of the week, as one of my coaches used to say. He used to say, fellas, it's Monday. It's the best day of the week. And then he would come by on Tuesday. Tuesday, best day of the week.
So essentially today is the best day of the week. No, whatever day that is.
Whatever day it is, it's the best day of the week. Welcome into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen's back. We got the crew. Bill is still bunkered down. One more day. He's taking the information that he gathered from his intel and the scrimmages. He's put them in his supercomputer. He's crunching the numbers. He's getting it ready to go.
Bill is going to come back in here tomorrow with a detailed analysis of every team South Carolina is going to face and any conceivable team they might face in a bowl game.
Absolutely. He's been putting his feelers out around the Southeast. He's gotten a lot of reports from first scrimmage. He's heard a lot of things. He's talked to a lot of people. He knows a lot of guys who said that they've seen some things.
Sources tell me.
He's gathering sources. A lot of things are happening. But welcome in. Thank y'all for joining us.
What kind of nonsense are you two talking since I've been out for 2 days?
We're spinning a yarn. We're spinning
it big time.
We're trying to be optimistic about what he's going to bring back in when he comes back tomorrow. Will that happen? We don't know.
We're spinning a yarn.
We're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
That's correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. The positivity is a good thing.
That's correct.
Positives this morning.
But when he comes in tomorrow and says, well, I don't know what to talk about, then you can get back to the norm.
Yeah, then you could accuse me like I would accuse the coaches of blustering, of maybe fan-famming a little bit. So we lot to discuss today. Obviously, big weekend. A lot of things were happening over the weekend. Gold medal games, which were fantastic. Yep. Gold medal games, which were fantastic. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about those. I've made a statement. I've said it over here. I've been banging this drum on this show, and I will make the statement again. Asia Wilson is the best basketball player in women's basketball, maybe 1,000%. In basketball, period. And it blows my mind that she is from Hopkins, South Carolina. It is amazing to me.
It is. It never ceases to amaze me, but I guess watching yesterday, and once the game was over and everybody else was kind of on the court walking around, just how big she is compared to a normal person. Like, and obviously that helps her a lot with basketball, but just like, man, she's just like got everything in her corner and is an amazing basketball player to back it up.
Yeah, she's the total package, 100%, and you can see it on a global stage yesterday, which, by the way, they did not make easy.
No.
Which I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but I'd like to thank the Olympics for warming me up for the football season.
Sure.
Because yesterday during the gold medal game, I found myself in my stance watching the game, 45-degree angle, hands behind my back, legs spread wide, watching the game like this, rocking side to side.
Maybe some Surrender Cobras in there, like, uh-oh.
Never quite got there, but I did find myself in my game watching stance.
And especially for the women, because that's now 61 straight Olympic games that they have won. I believe that was only the second one out of that stretch determined by single digits, which is insane, but it almost kind of makes you appreciate it even more because you did have to fight tooth and nail for that. It was truly in doubt until the very end, and I got the call queued up. We can get to it in a little bit. Like, the girl in the France team, if she takes a step back, we're going to overtime.
Yikes! Yeah, it was an amazing game. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the Olympics. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Obviously, Saturday was a big deal with the first scrimmage being held at South Carolina. We will spend a majority of our time talking about that, seeing what we can glean from that. What tidbits of information did we get? Shane had a long press conference on Saturday after the game, which I think he did a great job of explaining what his methods and motivations were behind the scrimmages, and it kind of set the expectation for what we should think to expect from these games.
And, I listened to the entire thing, cut it up and all that kind of stuff. He seemed aggravated. He did not seem his usual. Towards the end, he started to loosen up a little bit, but those first 20 or so minutes, he just seemed very kind of like he was bothered by something.
What was and this is what I don't know, what was the time frame of the press conference after the scrimmage?
As far as I know, and he talked about this a little bit, because they had scrimmage in the morning, they had lunch, and then I think was his press conference, because he referenced, hey, I was talking to Lenoris at lunch. So maybe an hour-ish after the scrimmage, sometime around there, but it wasn't all that long. And he said, I'm going to go back in my office, watch the film and all that kind of stuff. So he was going off of what he had just seen through his eyes. He'd not gone back and really reviewed everything yet, but he seemed, considering what we normally get from Shane, seemed very bothered by something.
Yeah, well, because in the first scrimmage, what you see with your odds is everybody's terrible.
Yes.
And you're looking around like, I am so frustrated. I can't believe we're not. All the doomsday thoughts that run through a coach's head are running through his head. We're never going to win a game. I can't believe it. Blah, 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 blah. And this is what every coach does at this point. And then you go back and watch the film and you're like, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And so I would imagine, not to psychoanalyze here, but I would imagine that is probably what was running through his mind. We'll get to this way later. We'll talk about it consistently, but I want to just call these folks out.
Yeah.
ACC, you are frauds. You are absolute frauds. I can't believe that you have using this technique to claim superiority for college campuses in the gold medal games. We'll talk about it later, but just know that ACC, fraudulent. They should never be able to use this technique, which I guess is a very strategic way of saying that they have won the most medals, period, than any other conference.
That's not the first time they've done this.
Oh, so they have a history of this?
Well, at least throughout the Olympics.
Yeah, they've been very
consistent.
Very consistent with this being absolute frauds with this. But with that being said, we are getting closer, Tyler. We're getting closer. I believe if I do my countdown right now, I don't even have to do any countdowns. Is it 18?
19 days.
19 days.
Now we're at the point where the math gets really easy because, Saturdays are always going to be by sevens, and then you subtract 19 days. Boom, easy.
So we're hitting 19 days in between, 19 days until kickoff. So we've run this countdown down for a long, long time, and we are well within striking distance.
Yes.
Well within striking distance. Like, you have to start making plans. You have to start getting yourself together, making calls. Who's going to be at the tailgate? What time are we going? Blah, blah, blah. All of these things are starting to happen now.
I can say right now, as we sit here on this Monday, there's college football next weekend. Not this upcoming weekend, but next weekend. The 24th is week 0.
You're running a little ACC technique there.
Exactly. We are almost there. And again, is it the most compelling football? No, but it's football nonetheless, and it gets you ready for that onslaught that begins on Thursday, the 29th, and runs through Labor Day night, September the 2nd.
And with that being said, with us getting ready, we have to go out to our number one caller. He's on time, in his first slot, getting prepared for the season. Gamecock Larry, what you got for us, man? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. 19 days for kickoff. Can't talk much trash. They've been feeling very good, but that's okay. But 12-0 until we lose one, then 11-1. But I want to put a shout out to my wound care nurse, Madison Brooks. She came out Saturday, and I don't know what's wrong with these things on my feet, but she fixed them up, and she told old Gamecock Larry, you step back, keep weight off my feet. Now, how in the world are you supposed to keep your weight off your feet? You know what I've been doing? Sitting in my recliner and transferring from a recliner to a wheelchair with somebody pushing me. But I'm just going to be I'm going to be ready. I hope the good Lord help me to be ready when the football season goes start. And I'm going to tell you, Clemson fans, something right now. I don't like you. I don't like your football team. I don't like Georgia's football team. I wish there was some way when both of you could lose. But I'm going to tell you what. I don't care who loses. I do not care. But that's not all I got to say. And I'm just here. I'm trying to stay healthy, but it's hard when the old man can't do nothing. But the good Lord takes care of everything. I want to say I love y'all as long as I got 107.5, the morning show, as long as I got Jen holding them two men down there, which is her, what do you call them? Well, her co-host, no. I don't know. You know what I mean.
They're my
charges. I love all y'all.
Yeah, there you go.
Go Gamecock. Jen, you keep them straight. Gamecock's listening. Gamecock Live is listening. And that's about all I can do. I'll call in when I can, especially if I hear something flat about my Gamecock by a Tiger. Go Gamecocks. Love all y'all. Talk to you later.
Appreciate it. Appreciate that game call, Larry, as always. And as Shane Beamer and staff have told Rocket Sanders, you have to be coachable. Take your coaching. Go through the rehab. We don't want to rush the process. Trust the process. We can't have you rushing before, Larry. We don't need you ready for tomorrow.
That's right.
We need you ready in 19 days for the first game. So it's going to be frustrating, just like Rocket. I'm sure Rocket wants to get out there and play.
Sure.
But you got to trust the process.
It's the long game that we're playing here.
That's right.
By the way, the 12-0 until proven otherwise, that's not the positivity they need in camp right now. It's got to be, you guys suck. We got to get better.
We got to get on them. In the back of your mind, you can think one thing, but we can't tell them that outside. When we come back, we want to talk. We want to listen to this. Yes, a lot of things happened during the first scrimmage, but what I think is most important is hearing Shane Beamer talk about how he approached the first scrimmage, because from there, then we can glean some of the results. So when we come back, we'll listen to Shane Beamer talk about the difference, how he's approached year one to now with the scrimmages. This is the early game.
Doesn't appear that we have any accidents at this moment, and we're good with that. Let's have a nice, easy commute for our Monday morning. And as far as your forecast is concerned, we do have a chance for a little bit of rain in the forecast, maybe this afternoon or this evening, she says. 91 is going to be our high today. Afternoon or evening storms tomorrow, 88 for the high. Clouds on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Highs in the upper 80s also. Maybe the next chance of rain after tomorrow. Really, the next chance of rain not coming in until maybe on Saturday. But right now, it's kind of muggy out there. Some patchy dense fog as well. 76 on the early game.
Welcome into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen's back in the saddle. So now Tyler's next to me. 3-man group here. We're running every Bills hunkered down into his cave, analyzing first scrimmages all around the country.
Sure. We'll go with that until proven otherwise.
And that's what we had this weekend in Columbia. We had a first scrimmage. Now, Friday, we spent the whole day. If you listen to us Friday, we spent the whole day breaking down first scrimmages. What do they mean? More importantly, what don't they really mean? We talked about what you could expect to hear from it. We talked about all the results that we've had in previous years. The biggest thing that we can say out of this first scrimmage is that we did not have any significant injuries.
Right.
And so if nothing else was accomplished, first thing, do no harm. And no harm was done to the team in the first scrimmage.
We'll always take that as a win.
That's a win. And because as you start to read around the country, you start to see these things trickle in. Texas A&M's running back was, and I don't know if it was during the first scrimmage or if it was during the first week of camp.
Texas's running back was injured as well.
Texas's running back. So you see these things happen, and this is something you have to guard against and prepare for throughout the season. But it doesn't make sense for us to really talk about the first scrimmage because Shane did a great job of explaining what his philosophy was for first scrimmages. And I think once we listen to Shane talk about his philosophy, especially how he approached this year's scrimmage to how he approached them in the past, then we can sort of glean the results of them. So, Jen, can we get that clip of Shane talking about what he's learned and how he approaches the scrimmages now as opposed to how he did his first year?
Great question.
This is what I do.
Yeah, I know. Well, making me think. Probably just having a better understanding of, physically what you need to do with the football team to have them ready to go game one, if that makes sense. Not that we weren't my first year. I think we beat Eastern Illinois 46-0 or whatever it was. So, we were ready to play and we played well that night, obviously. But just understanding, okay, today is 3 weeks out, and making sure that I'm doing the right things in practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to that Saturday scrimmage so our guys can do what they need to do on Saturday, and understanding that you may not need to see Rocket Sanders today as much as you needed to see Matthew Fuller and Joe Warren Howe and DJ Braswell, if that makes sense.
So what he's referencing is that Rocket Sanders did not participate in the scrimmage for no reasons that we know of other than yes, he is coming off an injury. He's been 100% cleared during practice. According to Shane, he's done all of the drills. He's been full contact. But they did not need to see what Rocket Sanders could do in this first scrimmage.
We know what Rocket Sanders is, and if he is fully healthy, he's one of the best running backs in the SEC and in all of college football. He doesn't have to go out there and prove anything. Like, he's good. And again, when you're in a game-type scenario, contact, taking guys to the ground, the last thing you want to do is hurt your star running back in a scrimmage that, again, he doesn't have to prove anything in.
And so it seems like Shane and company are taking more of a pro approach towards scrimmages, and he actually hinted towards that during the press conference, whereas the first scrimmage is a lot of times to start to clear out the depth chart.
Right.
We want to see who performs on the depth chart. It's not necessarily for the guys at the top of the depth chart, i.e., let's say on defense. It's not necessarily the scrimmage to see if Debo Williams can hit somebody.
Right.
We got that.
Sure.
It's not necessarily to see if Boogie Huntley or TJ Sanders, if they can play. We understand that. The first scrimmage, the way they seem to be approaching it is, let's see what the guys on the second and third places in the depth charts, if we can gain some separation there, and maybe the picture gets a little clearer as far as depth concerns.
Which we knew that was going to be vitally important this entire offseason in general, because you had so many new guys and changes to so many rooms, kind of figuring out what either the depth chart or the rotation is going to look like. And as you said, yeah, we know Debo Williams is going to be a starter at linebacker. That's kind of besides the point. If anything, for him and some of those other guys, it was, kind of get back in the game feel of everything. But everybody behind him and these other spots, it is trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be our second option? Who's going to be our third option? How much can we rotate through these guys at defensive line, at edge, and all that kind of stuff, figuring out what our game plan is going to be.
And so he hit on these, I believe, Jen, can we get clip number 4, where he talks about how the offense looked overall? And again, I think it's important to frame the conversation of how Shane was approaching that as to how he thinks about the offense. Here's clip number 4. He's talking about the offense overall, how they performed.
Yeah, I felt like we had some self-inflicted things today that, from an offensive standpoint, that we'll lose football games, whether it be drops or some penalties. You got a drive going, and then you have a penalty that backs you up. So stuff today that we can correct. But I thought, our guys did a good job overall of moving the football. I thought our defense did a great job when the offense got down in the red zone or maybe had an explosive play. The defense responded the right way. Offensively, there's no question we have to do a better job of finishing drives and making sure that we're not doing things that beat ourselves, because we certainly had a lot of that last year. But overall, I thought I was pleased, especially not having, Marquis Anderson, who we're counting on, and Ja'Kai Moore, who we're counting on, and, Juju's going to have a critical role in this offense, and you hope that Vandrevius Jacobs continues to come along and whatnot. So with those guys that were out there, saw enough that, typically scrimmage ones are favor the defense anywhere that I've ever been. And it'll be very good. I'll be very eager to see how the offense responds this week before we go into next Saturday's opportunity back out there in the stadium.
As I've said before, you do not want to come out of scrimmage one and you say that the offense was lighting the defense up.
No,
because
that's a problem.
That does not improve. Offenses, as much as I disparage them, as much as I talk about them, they are complicated pieces of machinery.
Sure.
All of these things have to be working in synchronization in order for a play to work.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more difficult for offenses to get going. They need time.
And you're also remembering that Dow Loggins is implementing a new offensive system built around what Lenore Seller's skill set is. And yes, they had an opportunity to do some things in the spring. You have a lot more guys on campus now. Again, you're kind of figuring out who's going to be what pieces where. So there's probably a lot of fine-tuning still going on with that, which again would suggest that it's going to be a little bit behind what the defense is doing. That being said, penalties are something else. You can't have those kind of problems be too persistent. That's something you do have to clean up before the season starts.
Well, here's why scrimmages are of value, because when you're during the first 7 days of camp, even when you go quote unquote team period, if somebody has a holding penalty, you just bring the ball back to where you started.
Sure.
You don't actually get the full effect of seeing like, oh, I had a holding penalty here and now we're 15 yards back that way.
Sure.
And so a lot of times, and also during the team period, a guy gets a holding penalty and you just run the next play because you're trying to get reps in.
Sure.
You don't get the full effect of the damage that a penalty actually causes. And yes, they've been playing football all the time. They should know. But in this case, this is why you want to have scrimmages so they can see, no, you can't block behind the back here, because even though it was downfield, you just took a 15-yard gain and you turned it into a -10.
Right.
Or you took a first down and you negated it.
Right.
You don't get a chance to see that when you're just having regular team scrimmages, team practice. So that's why you need scrimmages in order to sort of do these things, in order to show why these things can ruin an offense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, that's something that is obviously going to be an issue early on in camp. It's something that you hope that you clean up before the season starts. But again, the offense as a whole is going to be behind the defense, but those are the things that you do have the ability to not have as big of an issue, from your own perspective.
Yeah, so Shane talked about his differences between year one and year two. Also, he talked about how does he want to use his players in the first scrimmage. Again, I think it's important when you start hearing things or you're searching message boards or you know somebody that's seen something, that heard something, understanding at least what Shane thinks from his philosophy. When we come back on the early game, we'll hear Shane talk about how he uses players during the first scrimmage. This is the early game.
It's looking pretty good out there this morning. Not really seeing any major slowdowns to speak of. Good news there. Don't really have any standing water. We like that as well. But your forecast, not looking too bad either. It's going to be hot and humid today. 91 for the high, overnight low of 73. Might see some afternoon or evening thunderstorms popping up. 88 tomorrow with some afternoon and evening storms. And then we kind of get out of that rain pattern for a few days and stay in the mid-80s through about Friday. But right now, it is a little bit muggy. We do have some patchy, dense fog out there. 76 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. We are here talking about the Gamecocks' first scrimmage. Now, typically after first scrimmages, you hear things. People have seen things. There's reports, sources, all the reasons why we love college football.
Rumors indicate.
Rumors indicate, all those things. The number one thing that we know coming out of this first scrimmage is that no one was injured seriously.
Which is good.
So that's a victory in and of itself, because if you look around the country, there are some places where there have been major injuries. Last segment, we talked about how Shane approached the first scrimmage, using it more of as a pro approach, as in we know who the guys are. We know a majority of these guys. There's not a lot of position battles at the top of the depth chart, but where position battles get really interesting is at the 2 and the 3 parts of the depth charts. And it seems like Shane and company are using the first scrimmage to clear out the muck.
Sure.
A lot of people will be coming to practice on Sunday or today, having new places on the depth chart based on where they play. And here's Shane talking about, I believe it's clip 18. Here's Shane talking about how he uses his players in the first scrimmage, or how they use them during this first scrimmage.
That year was probably just so much, okay, we got a scrimmage, we're going to get out there for about 100 plays, let's go, and let's evaluate and all that stuff as well. But probably, I don't want to say big picture, and to answer your question, I don't think I've changed a whole lot in that but maybe one thing that I know I have is just really, probably dialed in a little bit better about where we are physically throughout the week leading into Saturday, and then knowing that, okay, this upcoming Saturday, a week from today, will be 2 weeks before the first game. So let's get those guys that are going to be playing, kind of like the NFL when they used to play 4 preseason games. The third preseason game was the one where the starters played the most, probably into the second half. And the second preseason game, I've never coached in the NFL, but from what I know, the second preseason game is where you get some of your guys that are battling to make a spot on the team. Let's get them a lot of work and see what they do. And today was probably very much like that in a lot of ways, and at some positions. Whereas next week, we're going to get TJ Sanders and Tonka Hemingway and Boogie Huntley and Debo and Vershawn Lee, probably a little bit more work than they got today, so they'll be better equipped to play however many plays they got to play against Old Dominion in 2 weeks, if that makes sense.
All of that makes perfect sense. Does that make sense to you, Tyler?
Absolutely.
So you hear him playing out philosophy, and I think it's important for everybody to hear his philosophy. Now, Tyler, here's a situation, here's a spot that you may not be privy to, as of course you didn't play Division I college football.
Okay.
But there comes a point in your career when you know that you're on one of these sides of the aisle.
All right.
You know whether or not you're the guy that's going to get a lot of the reps during the first scrimmage, or whether you know you're going to go out there and maybe get about 15 or 20 snaps, and you're going to be on the sideline. You're engaged, but you're not really. You know your work day is done.
Sure.
And that is a very clear, distinct line. In some guys know that they're getting a lot of work on that first scrimmage, and some guys know, especially the players who have played in a lot of times, you know you're not getting those work. So I imagine some of those players you mentioned, TJ, Boogie, Debo, those guys are, while excited, they probably knew they weren't getting that much work on Saturday.
Yeah, and again, those aren't the guys that you need to go out there and see a tremendous amount from, because you know what you have with those guys, and they're already going to be in your starting lineup. It's, again, like you said, figuring out who's going to be either beside them or with them, rotating in with them and all that kind of stuff. So this is, and especially in an offseason like this with so much turnover and so many new guys and stuff like that, this is where you're trying to figure out what you have in game scenarios with those new faces and what they can do as far as crafting your game plan for offense and defense.
And so I'm cool with all of that. Everything Shane said, I agree with. Not that it matters that I agree with it, but I'm on board with everything it says. There was one red flag, though.
Okay.
There was one red flag that he talked up as he listened through this, and when he talked about having all those other positions solidified, he was pretty clear that there was a set of positions that were not solidified. Jen, can we get clip number 15 where he's talking about the kicking game? Because this is something that we've discussed. We talked about it on Friday. Did we talk about? Or maybe Thursday last week. We talked.
One of those days.
One of those days when we were working together, we talked about this is something that is going to be new. And Shane was as transparent as possible. So if there was a potential red flag out of the scrimmage, this might have been, I believe it's clip 15.
I think it's been very inconsistent. I think all those guys have had opportunities in practice that they've taken advantage of, and then they've also missed some really good opportunities to take a step forward. So it's I don't think we're any closer to having a starter at that position. I'm not worried, but it just overall has not been consistent as much as I would like. Having said, Kai Kroger and Mason Love are punting the crap out of the ball right now, so I'm really excited about those two guys and the way they're hitting it. And our kickers will be fine. They just we've got to keep putting them in pressure situations. And one thing that we've done this year preseason different is just putting them in pressure situations where something's on the line for the whole team, good or bad, depending on their kick, and trying to create those, if not daily, pretty much daily.
What he's referring to is a lot of times coaches will say, all right, kicker, come here. 37 yards, left hash. You make the field goal, no conditioner for the team.
Right.
You make the field goal, team gets no meetings for today.
Got to put some pressure on their shoulders.
You make the field goal, defense gets to eat first.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Oh, wow. So it's back to kindergarten and first grade.
Absolutely. And you talk about real pressure.
Well, I was going to say kickers are already not liked by a lot of the team anyway. And if you're preventing the defense from eating first, or you're making everybody run if you miss this kick, yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Lots of pressure. So that's what when he says he put them in those pressure situations, might be what he's alluding to.
But going back to our conversation on Thursday or Friday, whatever day it was, you have a guy in Alex Rara who's a sixth-year senior. He has kicked a total of 4 extra points in his career here at South Carolina. Never kicked a meaningful pressure-filled field goal. And William Joyce the same way. I think he's only a junior. He's only been on campus a little bit less, but he's not kicked, I don't think, any actual field goals or extra points in any game type situations either. So you have 2 completely unproven guys, and you ask the question of, okay, would these guys have had the option to go somewhere else and play, or are they just here because this is the only option that they had? And again, Mitch Jeter was here, consistent, 23 out of 25 field goals over the course of 2 years. You don't know how good you have it until he's not here anymore, and I'm afraid with what we're hearing that we could run into some kicking issues this year.
That's why I said this is the one that gave me a little reason for pause as I was listening to the whole conversation, because everything sounded pretty much standard, standard operating procedure. And Coach Beamer, when he talks about things, he has a way of skewing positive. Correct.
Even if something's not going great, like, man, they're competing really hard. We like what we're seeing. We're moving in the right direction. It was inconsistent. Like, he bluntly said it was inconsistent, which that to me raises a pretty big red flag, because it's probably even worse than he's letting on.
That's a very good point. That's a great point, because if you, like you said, he skews positive, and so if you hear him saying it's inconsistent, it might be lower than that. And as I mentioned, I think I'm looking at my notes. I think it was Thursday we talked about it. We've been so spoiled as a fan base. Things might not have been going right. We might not have had wins and losses, but we know if we marched the kicker out there, he was going to make it. Parker White, Elliott Fry before that, Suckup before. I mean, we've had
it's a long history.
We've had a long history of very good kickers. And not to mention, we had a superstar as the special teams coach in Pete Limbo.
Yeah.
Special teams have been really good to us as Gamecock fans. And Joe DeCamillis and crew, they're on notice, because this is something that we've expected to be good here.
So Mason Love comes in as a true freshman. As a punter, he's supposed to be handling kickoff duties. if we hear, or in the mixed handle kickoff duties, if we hear he's suddenly in the mix for the kicking job, I think that's when you really start raising the alert. Like, oh, now they've had to bring in a third guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we framed it. You have 2 kickers on staff here that you should be able to figure out between the 2. If you have to bring somebody else into that competition, then we've run into a real problem here, I feel like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You can have one guy to handle kickoffs, one guy to handle punting, one dude to handle field goals. I don't have any problem with that. You can have one dude handling multiple things. It doesn't matter. Like every other positions, you want to have your best people ready to go. And as I said, not only is it the personnel, but also the coaching, because we had a coach who made special teams a weapon for the Gamecocks, was able to maybe get us out of some situations that were get us into situations that were advantageous for us, steal a couple of points, get a couple of possessions, make a few plays.
Right.
And those are things that you're going to need as a team who's projected to win 6, 7, 8 games. That can be, those special teams plays could be the difference makers.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something that Beamer and company have used very well in his 3 years here prior to, like you said, steal possession, grab a score here and there when maybe they otherwise wouldn't have had that. And if you don't have that in your back pocket, and it's one thing to fake punts and all that kind of stuff, but if you can't do the basics of making field goals at a consistent clip, you're in trouble.
Special teams is not easy. It's so many moving parts. Snap, hold, kick.
Yeah.
All these things have to happen, and they made it look so easy in the past. I would just say as a fan base, let's make sure we did not take that for granted.
And look, you can be the best special teams coordinator in the world. You can scheme things up the right way. If your kicker, when his foot meets the football, cannot put it through the upright, there's only so much coaching can do about that.
Absolutely true. We'll come back to that. We'll discuss that a little bit more, because out of the first scrimmage, that was the only thing that really made me sort of sit up and take notice. But what really made me take notice was Sunday, when our woman, the most dominant basketball player in the world, showed why she was. And I'm going to make the argument again, as I've made before, why Asia Wilson is the most dominant women's basketball player in the world after that gold medal game. This is the early game. Tyler Head, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen. See you in a second.
Kalia copper has been Kalia gold today. No timeouts here. Johannes up ahead. It's Williams. That was a 2. Banked it in. A 2-ball. And the United States is going to claim gold for the 8th consecutive Olympics. What a finish. Williams with her foot on the line.
Whew. Man, oh man. It was tight.
It was.
It was tight. Welcome back in the early game. It's Preston Thor, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. And that was the clip of the gold medal game of the women's basketball team defeating France in what was a battle. It was a battle. And as I stated, I'm glad for the Olympics because it's getting me primed up for football season.
Sure.
I got a chance to watch a really tight contest between the teams that a team that I really cared about. So I was watching the team. I had my position, 45-degree angle, legs spread apart, arms behind my back, swaying back and forth.
At 11:30 on a Sunday morning.
Early on a Sunday morning, I got admonished by my wife because Asia missed a free throw and I let out a word out loud and the child
Dag-nabbit?
it was a little stronger than that.
Fiddlesticks.
Fiddlesticks. It might have been fiddlesticks, but the child was in hearing distance. And
there you go.
I just got, Dad. I was like, oh yeah, my bad. But it was a tight one. I was definitely
gold medals on the line.
I was like, this is the gold medal. This is the gold medal game. So yeah,
Daughter has to learn gold medal is important.
She needed to know. Had her marching around the house saying USA.
That's right.
So we were going USA around the house. So we were all into the game. But the bigger point is that Asia Wilson is the most dominant women's basketball player in the world.
No doubt.
We've been having this conversation. I've been trying to drive this train to make sure that all of us here within that are listening to this understand how cool that is as a talking point. And as I was thinking about it yesterday, Asia Wilson not only is the most dominant basketball player, she's a champion. She's won at every single level. I'm always fascinated by that. But she's from Colombia. And what that means is that she has eaten a chicken biscuit from Bojangles. You know what I'm saying?
Right. She's one of us. Like she is ingrained in this community.
She has been stopped behind a train on Assembly Street. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, she's lived what we live, and now she's on another planet.
She's on another planet as far as the planetarium is concerned. So I'm thinking like all the things that make Asia Wilson from Colombia. I want to see if we can get folks to chime in. We know Asia Wilson's from Colombia. So what things does she share with you in the Colombia experience?
What Colombia things does she encounter in her life or has encountered?
What Colombia things has Asia Wilson encountered in her life, being that even though she's still the most dominant women's basketball player in the world, she's still from Colombia. What things has she encountered in her life? I already named 2. We got Bojangles and Stop Behind Trains on Huger Street.
Sports stars, they're just like us.
They're just like us. So 803-404-6100. Yes, Asia Wilson is the most dominant women's basketball player on the planet. However, she's still from Colombia. What are some things that is just really interesting, really funny to think about this person has also experienced? I'm just curious to see what kind of things that we assume that being a lifelong Colombian, what has she experienced? She's eaten Bojangles biscuits. She has been stopped behind a train. What are some other things that Asia Wilson, being who she is, where she's from, what are some other things she's experienced?
Yeah, we'll see what people have to say.
She's been stuck in Malfunction Junction.
Malfunction Junction.
We've all been there.
Think about this. You could go to the greatest basketball player right now on earth and say Malfunction Junction, and she'll probably just frown. She'll probably just...
nameless texter parking tickets.
Asia Wilson, I'm sure, has gotten a ticket, maybe even towed, especially when she was in college, come out to her parking spot and like, where's my car? It's definitely happened to anybody else that's been a student at USC.
Nowadays, she might have some strings she could pull to, not have to pay that ticket or park wherever she wants.
But what's funny about
when she was coming up, I'm sure she had her share of issues.
I'm sure. But what's funny about that is when you have the cachet or, you have where you can pull the strings, you can afford to pay the ticket.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That's true. It's still the inconvenience of going out there looking like, man, I thought I parked here.
Yeah.
There's another car in my parking spot.
You know, it's funny. The parking deck next to us had that big like banner of her a couple of months ago or last year, whenever it was. Could you imagine parking in front of that and getting towed?
That's me.
That's me, right there.
That is me.
Does that not give me anything? Nothing?
So 803-404-6100. Asia
Yeah.
Wilson is a Colombian just like you. What has she experienced despite being the greatest women's basketball player on earth?
We got a lot here. They're flying in.
Nice.
We got a 3-piece from Bernie's.
Correct.
Rush's cheeseburger. A lot of food ones in here.
Yeah.
The heat, obviously. Oh man, there's a lot here. Bojangles again.
You got the heat. Think about all those people that were like, "Oh, it's so hot in France." You think Asia was hot?
Yeah,
Not at
right.
all. She was like, "This is nothing."
I mean, she's always cool, but she was fine.
Yeah,
Cool.
I looked up the temperature over the course of the Olympics. I don't think it ever peaked above like 80. I was like, that
light
is-
work.
She probably had a jacket on.
I mean, think about her career trajectory. She went from growing up in Colombia, the hottest place on earth, and now she works in Las Vegas.
Well, but it's a
It's a dry heat. That's right. Dry heat.
That's what
It's
they-
different.
Yeah, right. 125. Yep, the dry.
Oh man, yeah, a lot of good ones here. Caught every light on Assembly Street.
As a positive, like the rare occasion when you catch all the green lights, when it's like, oh man, something's working in my favor today.
Instead, it's stop, 5 feet, stop, 5 feet, stop, 5 feet, stop.
It could go one way. It could go one way or the other. So keep them coming in. Asia Wilson is the greatest basketball player on the planet, but she's still from Colombia. So what things has she experienced as a native Colombian, despite being the most dominant women's basketball player on the planet? We'll come back and we'll have a little more discussion. We got Jamie Bradford lined up in the next hour, talking a little bit more about scrimmages, first scrimmages. Has he heard things? What has he heard? What's going on? What's the word on the street? Major things is that there was no injuries, so that's most importantly. But this is the early game. I'm Preston Thorne. He's Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. Join us in for the 7 o'clock hour.
Still looking pretty good out on the highways this morning. Great Monday morning commute all around the Midlands at this point. Hope we're not jinxing it by telling you that. 91 for the high today. Going to be kind of muggy again. Few afternoon or evening storms. 88 tomorrow with afternoon or evening storms. Then we get a couple days where we can actually get caught up on like mowing the grass and stuff. No rain in the forecast Wednesday through Friday. Highs in the mid-80s. Right now, though, it's kind of muggy. There is a little bit of patchy fog out there, and we're looking at 76 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. Thank you for joining us. If you just joined us, thank you for hanging with us. If you've been with us, having a lot of conversation today, talking about first scrimmages. We did a deep dive on Friday, but now that the first scrimmages happened, the main thing that we can report is that there were no injuries.
Right.
And that's always a good thing in talking about that as far as no injuries were concerned. So we've had a lot of discussion about no injuries. Just talked about Aja Wilson being the most dominant women's basketball player in the world and also still being one of us. Tyler, we got any more submissions to the line about how she is one of us.
More food, Zesto's ice cream cone, classic. Bread and milk famine when snow is forecasted.
Right.
Riverwalk off Hugie, 2015 flood.
Yes.
Enduring the Muschamp years.
Yes.
We're kind of covering all bases here.
Nice, absolutely. It just tickles me that you can look on TV and be like, oh, yeah, she's walked down the same roads that we've walked down.
Yeah, she knows the inside jokes that we know.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that's kind of cool.
It's literally one of us.
It's kind of like when you had like a class with a student athlete in college and you're like, man, they're probably struggling with the same homework that I am, or, well, they probably did pretty bad on that test just like me. So it's like, it's a grounding experience when, again, they're just normal people that are just genetically better than all of us.
That's the really cool thing. You'll see like, oh, this person is doing the same thing, or you're like, oh man, they're no different than you. They just happen to be able to shoot a ball really well.
Exactly.
and they be 6'5" or something along those lines. That's one of the really, really cool things. Real quick, shout out to everybody going to school today. If you're on the road, today was like what I would like to call the real first day of school. You might have started on Thursday or Friday, but Monday is the actual real first day of school.
So when I go back to my normal drive-in tomorrow, I should probably leave a couple minutes early.
Yeah, adjust your traffic patterns a little bit earlier because folks will be out moving around. So shout out to all the teachers, all the students, all the parents getting back in the routines of school. And speaking of routines, we got my guy Jamie Bradford on the line. Jamie, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Jamie is anything but routine.
Well, that's correct. Jamie is not routine,
sure.
But we like to get folks in the routine that on Mondays we have Jamie in the studio because he's, you know what he is? He's dependable.
Well,
yes.
And you know all the credit we were giving Bill for what he's doing on his days off. Like Jamie might actually be doing those things.
That's actually what Jamie was doing. So real quick, Jamie, first days of school, are y'all back in routine, or what's the situation with this?
So our first day of school is tomorrow.
Okay.
Down here.
Okay.
Down here. So we have a meet and greet today, and that was supposed to be last week, but the tropical storm threw that. So our new routine kicks in 24 hours.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming y'all are still at the age where school is still exciting and everybody's still very excited and ready to go.
Yeah. They're excited. They're
right.
excited. I'm gonna keep them that way because I think I lost my excitement around probably around their age, 5. I despised going to school.
That's when the Sunday scaries start kicking a little bit. Is 6, 7, 8 years old.
5-year-old Sunday scaries. And I just thought about it, Jamie. I was down in your neck of the woods yesterday, man. I was down on Sullivan's, hanging out.
Oh, nice.
Hanging out early in the morning. I try and get out there early before the locals, before all the tourists get there. Mm-hmm. Got out there early, had fun. All right, so the first scrimmage of the weekend. We've been talking about really what Shane's philosophy in approaching, especially the first scrimmages, was concerned. And he basically said that it was more so the way the NFL approaches early scrimmages, where they're trying to clear out depth on the bottom parts of the depth charts to see who may not be making contributions as the season goes ahead. What have you, and I can lean on a cliche, what have you heard about any results from this Saturday's first scrimmage?
Well, the most important thing, nobody got hurt.
Correct.
That's number one.
And Jamie, let me stop you there. You say that, and we've said that, and people might think it's tongue-in-cheek, but when you look around the rest of the country, we've seen serious injuries to players around the country, correct?
Oh, already. I think Michigan lost their I don't want to say starting left tackle. I think there was 2 of them, but he was in there. I think Texas and Tennessee have both had big-time injuries already. So everybody, it's tongue-in-cheek until it happens to you, and then it reverts all the way to the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
And everybody starts going, this only happens to us. Well, that's not true. It happens to everybody.
Right.
You just don't pay attention until it happens to you.
Right. So first and foremost, no injuries. So that's a positive. All right. Anything else that you heard from the first initial rounds of scrimmages? Yeah,
honestly, the feedback that I got, I guess it was sometime yesterday, was all stuff that sounded pretty par for the course, if that makes sense. And honestly, that's perfectly cool. I mean, you want the defense to be ahead of the offense, generally around here, when the offense is ahead of the defense, that is no bueno for what's to come that season.
Yes.
So that's a good sign. I think that they feel like they continue to feel not just like, but better, that they have the depth and they have created the competition that they need in places like up front on the offensive line, in the wide receiver room, and then, of course, on the defensive line, they've got a bunch of players there that they really like. They've got a lot of competition, as we know, at that corner spot. And so they saw some good and some bad, and now they get to go correct all that stuff, and then they get to do it again this Saturday. So I feel like they feel like they're kind of where they want to be, and now you get to hopefully start seeing some separation here in about 4 or 5 days.
And Jamie, off of that, as they, like you mentioned, do have another one coming up this weekend, how much can change from week to week between one scrimmage and the other once you kind of get a, I guess, core idea of what you have in scrimmage number 1 and then move on to the second one a week later?
Well, I'd defer to your partner there for that. And I'm not necessarily sure I'm the one that can answer the question. What I do know is that you want to see the gap close between the offense and the defense. You might even see the offense get a little bit better of the other side of the ball next weekend. But if the gap closes and you walk out of there and you feel like you've got an idea of the dudes that you're going to run out that are within week 1, it might not be set in stone. You still got a lot of stuff to prove. But hey, if the season started tomorrow, this is probably the direction we go. Then I feel like that's what you're searching for from basically the first 2 weeks of camp.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, and sometimes it's hard for me to remember how anything actually happened, but if I remember correctly, my redshirt freshman year, I was obviously coming off of a redshirt. I was going into the season pretty lower on the depth charts, one of those 3-4 guys that was on the depth charts. We had an injury that took place to a second place guy, and I happened to get pretty hot. I started playing really well. And in between the first and second scrimmages, I kind of made a move towards getting into that second sort of spot. But I didn't start camp there. I started camp pretty lower down on the depth chart. And so, yes, to your point, Jamie, things do happen throughout camp, whether it's through injury or somebody just might be playing really well and they end up moving up and down the depth chart. And coaches can't predict that before the season.
No, you can't predict any of that stuff. I mean, I was talking to John Strickland on Friday about some of this stuff. You know, John and I were just kind of bantering back and forth about how quickly it can change. You know, some guy you don't know, as you know, how quickly the light's going to come on for some of your young guys. Certainly, as you mentioned, the I word is a part of things, and you never want it to be, but it is and will be. And then, you know, when the lights come, I mean, some guys just pop when the stadium lights come on. And like I remember, you know, when I was still in school, what ended up being a good buddy of mine, Kenny McKinley. You know, Kenny comes to school as a quarterback. We all knew he was moving to wide receiver. Everybody knew the motor that he had, but he was a little rough around the edges. And then they get out there in these scrimmages, and you know, Coach Spurrier's looking around, going, "Man, that Kenny McKinley, he sure can run." You know, and it was game day. You know, it just clicks for some people. So there's just so many things that are going to happen. I mean, I think a lot of fans are focused on young players, and I understand that. I'm focused on older players because you can't win without the guys who've been around a while. And so I really want to see how those guys have developed. Guys like O'Donnell Fortune, I think he's got a chance to have an outstanding year. Your left tackle and your right tackle, Big Tree and Case and Henry, like those guys need to play well. So yeah, they have a lot of depth and a lot of competition, and that's it right now. That's what you need, and that's all you can ask for.
All right, Jamie, when we come back, we're going to go back to the offensive line. Shane talked a little bit about what the offensive line has done, and I want to get your perspective on some of the guys and break down what the positions are as far as who's there, what they're doing, and what the guys will be looking forward to, because I think we hear a lot of names. We've seen the depth chart sort of move up and down, and obviously people have a lot of questions about the position. So when we come back, we'll listen to Shane talk about the offensive line, and we'll get our guy, Jamie Bradford, to give us some breakdown on that. This is the early game on Press the Thorn. That's Tyler Head. Jen Jensen's on controls.
Still looking nice out there on the highways. We're not seeing anything that should impede traffic flow for your morning commute. 91 for the high today, afternoon and evening storms. Some afternoon storms possible tomorrow, 88 for the high. Then we get a reprieve for a few days. We'll have some clouds middle to the end of the week, highs in the mid-80s, but not looking too bad right now. It's cloudy, a little bit of patchy fog out there, 76 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen, joined on the friend by my low country brethren, Jamie Bradford. And Jamie, one of the big questions throughout the season, obviously based on performance last year, is what's going to be happening with the offensive line. I want to listen to Shane real quick talk about the offensive line's performance during the scrimmage and what he's seen to this point, and then we'll let you expound on the clip. Jen, it's clip number 11, I believe. Let's listen to Shane talk about the offensive line.
I feel pretty good. They've battled for one, outside of Marquis and Ja'Kai not playing today. They've been healthy. And Marquis just had something that he kind of tweaked a little bit. What's today? Yesterday, I guess, or Thursday. And then Ja'Kai, same thing. Don't, like I said, expect both of them back at practice. So first part is they've been out there. They've stayed in the fight. We've got a full group out there where we're not like banged up right now. So proud of them from that standpoint, the way they prepared their bodies over the summer to withstand the rigors of training camp. And then overall, I've been pleased. I like the way that group is working. Lonnie is, mixing guys in and out and getting them work at different spots. And I feel like those guys have done a good job. I like the way that we've run the ball in practice this week for sure. And it was good to see some of those backs carry the ball today. We really wanted to come out of this scrimmage having a good idea about the running backs and who we can count on right now and who may be in that rotation going forward. And the offensive line out there gave us an opportunity to do that, in my opinion.
All right, Jamie, based on what you heard, and then let's say if they're just getting ready for football season and just starting to gear in, what are some either names or folks that we need to start looking out for on the offensive line for them this year?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hinted at it before we hit a break, but I mean, I'm really interested in the guys that have been around. I mean, I know that there's so much excitement around the young ones, and there should be. Those guys are really good, like Josiah Thompson. I mean, he's the first name that comes up. Cam Pringle is just going to be an outstanding football player at Carolina. Jatavius Shivers, I mean, Blake Franks, all these guys that are here are coming in, they're going to be really good. But if you want to win now, you better hope, right, that your guys who've been around a little while are going to go out there and do what they need to do. So I listened to Ja'Kai Moore talk last week. I had a chance to meet Ja'Kai last year, spent a little time around him. What a nice kid. And is that good or bad for offensive linemen, Preston? I don't know, because him and Vershawn are really, really nice people. But I hope that they play really, really mean when they're on the field. Ja'Kai was a guy that I kind of had pegged as that sixth man coming into the season. He can he's played just about everywhere, and he can kind of fill in wherever you need him to. Does he work his way into the lineup? I don't know. The health of Kason Henry is a concern. Outstanding football player, very talented, great kid, hasn't been healthy. So if he can get healthy, I mean, he is enormous if you've never seen him. He's a big, very capable young man. So we'll see what happens with him. Big tree. I mean, these guys, and then all that centers around the center, Vershawn Lee. Vershawn Lee, that's one of the things that I think that Carolina football, with the inconsistencies, guys over however many years, it's not like the Gamecocks are known every year for putting out one of the top 4 or 5 offensive lines in the league. It's every few years they roll out a group that's really good. So usually it's what I would call a work in progress. But one of the things that seems to always kind of be there, if you notice, Gamecocks always have a center. They always have a center. And if one guy goes down, the next guy that comes in is always really pretty capable of playing center. And I think the next great center comes this year. I think Vershawn Lee's going to be outstanding.
And Jamie, given the depth we have on the offensive line, obviously, assuming everyone stays healthy, you ideally want to have the same 5 every single game. But could this be something we see tweaked, at least through the first couple of games, trying to figure out exactly what your right combination is once you actually get into real game scenarios?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And they're cross-training for that. And I do think, Tyler, I think you're on the money there. I mean, ideally, you'd like to see the first 5 in the first game, and then you see them in the last game. But that's not happening anywhere in college football anymore. So, I think give it the first 8, 12 quarters of the year, and you'll probably have a little bit of an idea what this thing, as long as they stay healthy, is going to look like the rest of the way. Now, with the caveat, though, look, you should be fine opening weekend. You work through the kinks. You'll have some hiccups. But when you get to Lexington, you might have the best defensive tackle in the country up there, Deion Walker. I mean, he is – Preston, how big are you? You're about, 6'3"? What'd you play at? 305?
I'll take all of it, but here's the thing. He's way bigger than that.
He is everything. Well, you were listed at 6'3",
right.
Okay? Well, I'm going by the listing here.
I don't even know what his listing is. I know what my eyes saw, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I looked up the listing in their media guide the other day. It just said large. That's all they wrote.
Correct.
He's showing 6'6", 344.
And he wears number 0.
He wears number 0,
right?
that's 2 more inches and 20 more pounds.
He fills out that 0 very well. It's very circular.
This might be one where the SID kind of screwed up. Dude, he is actually 6'6". He's definitely 340. He should have been in there at 6'8.5 and 367.
Agreed. I'll say this though. When I heard Shane, and again, sometimes I know we all do this and we listen to coaches and we kind of maybe roll our eyes a little bit, but don't take for granted the aspect of offensive line battling, because what's going to happen is they will get beat on occasion, but will they have the extra fight or the extra gumption enough to fight through a block or to move their feet a little bit more, to not give up on a play? And that is something that you don't see listed in the media guide, but I would position that as something that is very important for offensive linemen. And so it sounds like it's a sort of a cliche, or it sounds sort of trite, but if that is something that's true, that is actually something that I would look for our offensive line. Do they want to battle? That is an important question.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else, especially with Coach Elliott coming back, not to that's not trying to minimize Coach Teasley and Coach Adkins and these guys that are really, really brilliant football minds. Man, talking football with Greg Adkins is one of the funnest things out there. He's just an old school guy. I love that. But with Coach Elliott coming back, that intensity, that added intensity, you have 3 offensive line coaches, dedicated offensive line coaches on the field every day. Not to mention your offensive coordinator, not to mention guys like Mike Shula who are able to out there. All these guys really understand football. They're going to put a lot of pressure on this group to perform and to compete. And, some guys are going to really excel with that. Some guys are maybe it's going to take them a little bit longer. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I just feel like that philosophy, that group of coaches on this staff and adding everybody else into this thing, you feel like that group should be able to bring out the best of the best with what they have to work with. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And to go back to the other question that you had, offensive linemen, by far, nicest group of dudes on the team. They are all. I mean, they're salt of the earth dudes. Usually, by far, the best actual dudes on the team. But they're like big Labrador retrievers, whereas they look happy and fluffy, but don't come near the owner. They are protectors. at heart for sure. So can offensive linemen be nice and be good? Absolutely, because they are by far usually the best dudes on the team. Now, Jamie, coming back, there are some questions. One of the things that we talked about the offensive line, the offense is doing well, but there were some questions that I guess Shane sort of brought up about special teams. We want to come back and listen to Shane talk about special teams again and get your take on it. This is the early game. Pain from arthritis is just awful with bone-on-bone constant pain. It robs you of so much of the stuff that you love to do. But there are effective ways to deal with that pain, and I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. Listen, there are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief, and the place to go is QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. So if you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pains are not your only options. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, and restore mobility. And they'll give you long-term relief with no downtime. This is the future of medicine. So call for a free consultation now at 803-281-6860. That's 803-281-6860.
still really good out there on the highways. I'm not seeing any major slowdowns. We're not seeing that there's any accidents out there. So happy Monday to you. We're looking for a high today of 91. Those afternoon and evening storms are a possibility. That's kind of in the forecast today and tomorrow. Today's high 91, tomorrow's high 88. Then we kind of stay in the mid to upper 80s for the remainder of the week, and just partly cloudy conditions, really not any rain mid to late of this work week. Maybe some rain in the forecast for the weekend, but hopefully something will happen and that'll just blow out. But right now it's overcast, a little fog out there, 76 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen, Jamie Bradford's joining us. We're talking about some of the results from the scrimmages. First and foremost, no major injuries. That's most importantly. The offense moved the ball. We had those conversations, but Shane did bring something which it made me sit up in my chair a little bit as I listened to the press conference. Jen, can we listen to Shane? I believe it's clip 15. Can we listen to Shane talking about the kicking game?
I think it's been very inconsistent. I think all those guys have had opportunities in practice that they've taken advantage of, and then they've also missed some really good opportunities to take a step forward. So it's I don't think we're any closer to having a starter at that position. I'm not worried, but it just overall has not been consistent as much as I would like. Having said, Kai Kroger and Mason Love are punting the crap out of the ball right now, so I'm really excited about those two guys and the way they're hitting it. And our kickers will be fine. They just we've got to keep putting them in pressure situations. And one thing that we've done this year preseason different is just putting them in pressure situations where something's on the line for the whole team, good or bad, depending on their kick, and trying to create those, if not daily, pretty much daily.
All right, Jamie, I've positioned the idea that we as Gamecock fans have been spoiled rotten in the terms of kickers and special teams as far as units is concerned. When you hear Shane say those things, what do you hear and what can we sort of take from that?
Yeah, you're right. We've taken it for granted. We've gotten used to it. It's kind of like, Bill and Preston in the morning. People take it for granted. When Bill's not there, throws things off a little bit. Luckily, they get Tyler to sit in, and generally it's a little bit more enjoyable. But you get my point.
Thanks.
So I look at it this way: most people in life specialize in something. Like, when I was in baseball as a catcher, I could watch a catcher catch 2 or 3 pitches and instantly tell you A, whether he's good or not, and B, what he's doing wrong, what he's doing right, and so my eyes and my head see that and understand that better than most. If you're in any industry, the insurance industry, the media industry, if you're a doctor, if you're everybody is like, there are people who just get it. He gets special teams better than anybody, just like his dad. That's why Joe DeCamillis is here. Good special teams people understand good special. So when they say things like it's been inconsistent, you take them at their word that it has been inconsistent, but that's probably much more consistent than what's going on in other places. They just have a different expectation and a different level of consistency and a higher bar here that you're going to play for at South Carolina in that room. So what does that mean? That means that that this thing will probably go all the way up to until the first game almost. And matter of fact, they all might get a crack at it and see who performs when the light comes on and who doesn't. But I don't really see it as a bad thing. I just see it as a bunch of dudes who have really, really, really high expectations by a group that understands it as well as anybody in the country.
And Jamie, again, for the past couple of years, Mitch Cheater's had the job on lock, hadn't really had to talk about the kicking position all that much, but you have Herrera and you have Joyce, 2 guys that have been on campus for a while without really doing much of any meaningful kicks at all in their career. What, if anything, do we know about these guys up to this point in their time on campus that, can maybe give us an idea of which way this is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we know. I mean, the only thing that I've heard is, that all these guys have put in their time. And, I think one of the things that's really interesting is 2 years ago, so people are going to be, as they should be, focused on, place kicker, field goals, and all that stuff. My gut, by the way, tells me Alex Herrera wins it, the hometown kid. But we'll see. But the punting situation, isn't that kind of fascinating if y'all really think about this? Like, go back, not even 2 years ago, two seasons ago, and Kai Kroger did not win the Ray Guy Award. And people were falling apart over this, not just here in Columbia and in the state of South Carolina, but across the country. Folks are looking at this going, I just watched this guy named Kai Kroger literally punt South Carolina to a win at Clemson. And not to mention all the boots he had all year long. And then last year he had some challenges. I think, according to him, there were some things that he needed to correct in the off season, just from it's not really mentally, right? Just some adjustments he needed to make. And he was talking about drops and stuff like that. And now you hear Coach Beamer yesterday, that part gets missed by a lot of people. Well, Mason Love, who I've talked with Mason Love too, he's another really good kid. They've got a bunch of good kids on this team. Mason Love and Kai Kroger are punting the crap out of the ball, according to Shane Beamer. So you have a guy who was a finalist to win the Ray Guy Award 2 years ago. Last year did not have the season he was hoping to. Some injuries, some adjustments needed to be made, whatever. And now this year, you got a redshirt freshman and a senior who are neck and neck in the punting job. Again, somewhere else where there's competition. So they've got real competition here. I think it's going to work out for the better, more so than anything.
That makes a lot of sense when you hear about that. Again, I always want to make sure that we're not taking things for granted. When you say that they have a bunch of good kids on this team, a bunch of good young men on this team, that is something that we cannot take for granted, because there are other places around the country where players' names are showing up in police blotters and things of that nature. And this has not been a thing that we've really dealt with during, really, I would say, even the Will Muschamp era, but even with Shane Beamer also. And so I just don't want us to just take things as for granted, because these are really good things. These young men have worked really hard. Now we have to translate a lot of those things to the field. You brought up some really good points about the kicking game. When we come back, Jamie, we have another week which will be happening during the camp. I want to get your ideas of what do you think we should look for to shake out in some of these position battles in the next week. All right, this is the early game. I'm Preston. Tyler Head, Jen Jensen will be back. Welcome back into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. We got our guy Jamie Bradford joining us. We've been talking about the first week of camp vis-a-vis the first scrimmage. Now we have another week before we'll talk to you again next Monday, and a lot will happen in these next weeks. In your experience, Jamie, what can we expect to shake out in this next week of practices with the Gamecock football team?
So I think they'll get some separation.
Okay.
I think that they might not tell us that.
Right.
They're not. But I think that that's what they'll get. They'll get some separation, or at least they'll start to understand a little bit more about who they feel like they're going to be when the season starts. But I'm not so sure that you're going to hear Coach Beamer or anybody else on that staff this week or next weekend come out and say, "Well, these are our starters."
Right.
I would venture a guess. What do you think, guys? I would say after next Saturday, like once it all wears off and they meet on Sunday, I would say they probably feel good about, what do you think, 75, 80% of their starters. They just won't probably come out and announce that. But I think that's probably where they'll be mentally.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And they're not required to announce it to us, and they may be going through those processes. But yeah, that feels pretty close to what they're looking at.
Did we get a depth chart after the second scrimmage last year?
Ooh,
am I thinking right on that?
You're talking about when we start to talk depth charts.
I think it was later on that week. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was right around when Coach Beamer had his first radio show last year. I think that's when it came out. If I remember, I might be wrong.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. So we're hopefully going to – and there weren't as many open battles going on this time last year, but that at least give us a little more clear insight into what we got coming up here in a couple weeks. But who knows? Maybe because there's so much going on this year, we won't get it until the week of the first game. So we'll see.
Well, we talked about the O-line. Yeah. We talked about the kickers. I think one of the other positions that is singular maybe position is the other opposite side corner. And Shane mentioned that there's a pretty fierce competition about that. Can you give us a little insight into that, maybe that position battle?
No, not any more than they've given you, to be honest with you. But I will say this though, I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Like they're going to play. They're all going to play. I honestly, like, kind of throwing it back on y'all. Look, if I had to guess who a starter is going to be week one, I'm going to guess Judge Collier. But I'm going to guess Judge Collier, in addition to the fact he's a really good football player, they generally go early in the year under under Coach Beamer. They generally go with the guy who's been around. They generally go with experience. Okay, but like Vicari Swain, I'm telling about every other day somebody says to me, "Dude, this Vicari Swain kid can flat out play football. He's really good." Emery Floyd is a good football player. He's having a good fall. Like they've got good. So I don't think, like, I think that we're going to get too caught up in that. Like, I think we're going to look at who's the starter, and we're going to go, "Oh man, I knew it. I told you that guy was going to beat that guy out." I think that's, some of these are just going to be, you've earned the job to start, but you have to keep it. So, you're going to have a bunch of dudes that are going to be battling, and if you keep it, congratulations. If you don't, then the next guy's going to be in there. They're all going to play. I think they're all going to play.
Off that same note, let's talk about running backs here. We know Rocket Sanders is going to be the guy, and all indications are that he's healthy right now, held up from the scrimmage because no reason to give him any more contact than, that he doesn't need. But, Oscar Attaway being the other more experienced guy in that running back room, in addition to a Juju McDowell's come back from injury, would you say that Attaway kind of gets the benefit of the doubt as that second guy early until somebody else maybe proves otherwise?
Yep, I sure would. And the rest of these guys are going to play too. I think one of the more, Javon Howell, Matthew Fuller's having a good camp, by the way. He's a freshman. I don't know if you want to redshirt him if you can, but do you have to play him? I don't know. DJ Braswell's had a good camp. What are they going to do with Juju? He can do everything. what is Juju McDowell's? You have got to maximize Juju McDowell. He can't. What happened last year, early in the year and the year before, where he's just standing around and all of a sudden he gets in there on 3rd and 4 and runs between the tackles? Like, that can't happen. Like, what do you do with this guy to maximize his talent? I hope they have an answer. I'm sure they do. I know the rotations are going to be better. Markel Blackwell being in charge of those now with the running backs, it's going to be a lot better. What do you do with Juju? He can help you win football games. Hopefully he gets the football.
I think that's really interesting when you talked about the idea of the rotations, because that was something I had saw with the previous defensive line coach. I didn't think the rotations were as well or as well suited as they should have been, especially situationally. When you talk about Juju running in between the tackles, if Jamie's using, even though he does not exist in college football, we found out, right?
That's right.
In EA Sports 25, Juju's, I don't know whether he didn't sign in or what the deal was, but he's not on the game. But let's say Juju's the OC. Jamie's the OC. In your opinion, how are you going to use Juju? What is the optimal way, do you think, to use that particular player with that skill set?
Well, he's on my roster as flex.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I guess. Right.
Yes.
And he's kind of a slot guy. Like, he's good in space. So get him the ball. Can he catch? I think he can, from what I'm told. Now, I'm not saying move him to wide receiver. That's not what I'm getting at here. If he gets the ball around the line of scrimmage and can make things happen, I'm not an offensive coordinator, so I can't sit here and call plays necessarily. But he's a flex guy. Like, he's might be listed as a running back, but he's a football player, and the kid's a football player. It's just what he is. Mm-hmm. He's a tough football player. He needs the ball, and he's quick and he makes things happen. It's exciting when he gets the ball in his hands. It almost reminds me a little bit of Ace Sanders. So I hope he gets the football.
That sounds good. Now, Tyler, have you figured out a way to use him?
I have not. He's on, or the placeholder is a kick returner.
Okay.
So that's how we kind of know that it's him. But no, I have not gotten, and by the way, there's a lot of running backs on the depth chart for CFB 25. So no, I've not gotten around to how to utilize him in the right way. You might want to just I think you can still redshirt him. So you might want to save him for another season.
Stash him back in the
That's right.
Suit. All right, so Jamie, next Monday we'll be talking about, hopefully the depth charts will be shaken out a little bit. We'll have some conversations to go. But that's our guy, Jamie Bradford, joining us. Jamie, we appreciate you joining us on Mondays, man. Thank you.
Hey, just in case anybody was wondering what you were talking about earlier when you mentioned other programs having, issues, not a bunch. If you take I-20 West and then get off on 78 West, it takes you to a tiny little town named Athens. Stop there, check the local police blotter, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Noted. Absolutely noted. Jamie, we appreciate you joining us, man. Appreciate you joining us. We look forward to that. That's Jamie from the Big Spur. Thank you, man.
See ya. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Now, the last thing we talked about at the end of the 6 o'clock, we talked about Asia Wilson being the most dominant women's basketball player, and we had some folks send in submissions because I find it curious that she is the most dominant women's basketball player, and she's from Hopkins, South Carolina.
That's right.
That being said, she knows all the things that we know. What are some of the submissions that we have?
I think I've run through most of the ones we got in the last hour. For anybody that's just tuning in, please let us know, 803-404-6100 the Firehouse Subs text line. What are some things that we all experience in daily life around here that the greatest women's basketball player in the world, Asia Wilson, also experiences too?
We had some submissions of Bojangles being stuck behind a train on Assembly Street.
The train on Assembly Street, Riverwalk at Hugie. And these can be positive or negative. I think we kind of think about it in a negative way, but if you want to do fun things as well, that's perfectly fine. Getting a dip cone at Zesto's, those kind of things. So whatever is quintessential to life in Columbia is fair game.
All of the things that you need to be a strict Colombian to have those things. When we come back in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to talk these gold medal games.
Yes.
Because they were 2 fantastic games. Amazing performances and all the things you want from sport.
Real quick, and we played the clip in the last hour of the final seconds of the women's game, which again, the lady, she was a foot forward, or it could have been a 3 and tied the game. It was 2 and into the game. How about Noah Eagle? Man is 27 years old, killing it.
He's out there dealing.
Literally calling the biggest basketball games in the entire world. Next to Dwayne Wade on the men's side, flawless execution.
He's
incredible job.
He's dealing. This is a case where I am not on board with nepotism, but sometimes
he stepped up.
He got it.
He did. He did amazing.
He's really good. And if you don't know Eagle, obviously Iron Eagle, prodigy of that. So we'll definitely come back. We'll play some of that. We'll play the clip from. From the gold medal game for the women and the gold medal games and men. We'll talk about those things. This is the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. We'll be back.
Yeah. I think it's crazy that, as exciting as the men's game was on Saturday, we haven't even gotten to it. Yeah, but we'll dive into that in the 8 o'clock hour.
We'll talk about Chef Curry telling him to go night or nut in French. This early game, join us. Come back in at 8 o'clock. We'll look forward to talking more first scrimmage, more Asia Wilson, more Steph Curry. Preston, let me tell you about my friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come out to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they work directly with your insurance company to take away the headache. Now, if you're looking to increase the value of your home with new windows and mirrors, Absolute Glass will come out and take care of that for you, too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. It doesn't matter. I say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. And remember, they'll come out to wherever you are, and they'll give you a free quote. So that takes away half of the headache for you. So give them a call or meet them online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
No accidents to report out there this morning. It's a very good morning with regards to traffic flow. And as far as your forecast goes, might see an afternoon shower or perhaps one in the evening. 91 for the high, 92 tomorrow. Again, that chance for afternoon and evening storms. And then we hit the mid to upper 80s, really the remainder of the week under some cloudy skies. But a little bit of patchy dense fog remains this morning. It's kind of muggy out there, 76 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. If you're just joining us, appreciate you. If you've been with us, thank you for staying with us this whole time. We've been having a lot of discussion. We talked about the first scrimmage of the year. Heard what Shane Beamer had to say about that. We've been talking about the gold medal game and how A'ja Wilson is the most dominant women's basketball player in the world, and she is also from Colombia, which is a sentence that is just amazing because imagine being the most dominant person in your profession, one. But two, imagine that person that we watch on TV all the time being from here.
Well, and it goes back to our conversation, the 6 o'clock hour, that I think we don't think of celebrities and athletes and stuff as being normal people, having normal upbringings. But yeah, A'ja Wilson's experienced all the usual Columbia things that we've all experienced, growing up here, being around here, going to school here, obviously. Obviously, she's in Vegas now. She doesn't experience them as much as she used to. But, yeah, if she got stuck behind a train visiting Columbia one day in a couple weeks, she'd be like, here we go again.
I'm right back
dealing with it my whole life. Like, nothing new here.
I'm right back to where we started. And so this weekend was tremendous. It wrapped up what I thought was an awesome experience for the Olympics. And I want to say thank you to the Olympic people because – the sports calendar is notoriously pretty rough on talk shows going through June and July.
Yes.
And not only did we have a coaching search in early June, which gave us about 2 weeks of things to talk about.
Right.
Shout out to Coach Paul Maneri and crew. But then the Olympics came, and it dropped about 2 weeks' worth of content into our laps. So we didn't have to scrounge through depth charts or try and find some fake controversy. We just had actual sports that we could talk about.
And you had so many, just speaking for America here, so many good storylines, right? You had Simone Biles returning with the Olympic gymnastics. You had the last run of KD and LeBron and Steph and guys like that on America's men's basketball side. You obviously had the women, continuing on their winning streak. And, we knew the competition level was getting closer. We didn't foresee them playing such a tight game yesterday, but it made it very engaging. And obviously, multiple sports across the board that we're probably not even thinking of at this point with their own individual storylines and stuff that as you're paying attention to them on a day in, day out basis, you're understanding and learning a little bit more about that. So you had just a lot of compelling television to watch. And I've told this to you over the past couple of days. This is the most I've ever watched the Olympics. Like I've always had it on and watched, the basketball or some of the big sports, but I'm watching pole vaulting the other day. You know what I mean? This is something that in years past I never had the interest to do, but for whatever reason, I'm more sucked in this year.
I mean, and you think about all the games that was won. You had women's soccer win a gold medal game, 1-0.
Yep. 1-0.
1-0. My fault, Coach Annan. I apologize. 1-0. We had the women win that game, which, by the way, Trinity Rodman with her pink hair. I think that's so poetic.
It runs in the family.
It's poetic. It's perfect. So Trinity Rodman scores that particular goal. Remember at the beginning of the Olympics, you had the women's rugby team get the bronze. Noah Lyles winning the 100-meter dash by .005 seconds. Quincy Hall with the Gamecocks coming through running like a madman. There's been so many really cool stories that have not only been particular to America, but even more so specifically to the Gamecocks. I think the Gamecocks have done a tremendous job. SEC's done a tremendous job, unlike the fraudulent ACC, which we'll talk about here in a little while. But shout out to all the true SEC competitors who went to schools that were actually in the SEC when you competed, not after realignment. That's a whole nother story.
I was going to say, you actually competed for the SEC championships when you were in school, unlike the stolen valor of other conferences.
Exactly. But I want to talk about the gold medal game. So let's listen to this clip. And I want to set this up because we take for granted what we get to see in sports a lot of times. And when we're listening and watching sports, sometimes when we're seeing people who are the greatest, we don't talk about them being the greatest, especially when you're old enough and you've seen eras of sports. Maybe when new things are happening, you don't take for granted. You take for granted how good they actually are. But here's a clip from Steph Curry. I believe it's clip 21, Jen. When we can get Steph Curry, Jen. When we can get Steph Curry, Jen. When we can get Steph Curry going, clip number 21, talking about it's talking about his final shot from when he closes the door on France.
Curry dancing on Batum over the double team. Oh! It's a golden dagger. Night. Curry unconscious in the fourth. Davis with a rebound. Up ahead for Booker. Exclamation point. He's a bad boy. Night.
Steph Curry is the greatest shooter ever.
Incredible.
He's the greatest shooter ever. He's the greatest person to ever pick up a basketball, shoot it from distance, and make it. And to see him do that on the gold medal stage in those circumstances was it's a sporting achievement. It's a sporting moment.
And not just that, the last two games, because he was so critical in that one against Serbia.
I believe what he made, nine against Serbia.
Yeah, in the semifinals as well. NBC put up this stat yesterday after the game for Steph Curry. In his first 4 games, had only 29 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and was 5 of 20 from 3. In the last 2 games against Serbia and France, 60 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 17 of 26 from 3.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And again, we take for granted when you're seeing greatness happen, especially if you're somebody who's watched sports for a long time. Yeah, it's probably really simple for younger people because that's their generation. But sometimes we get jaded. I saw Jordan play. I saw some of these older guys play. So, and those things are clouding my mind. But there's no doubt about it. Steph Curry is the greatest person to ever shoot a basketball. And when he does it in this moment on this stage, it's not as if it was a Tuesday night TNT game against the Jazz or something. This mattered. And he showed up when it mattered.
Yeah, the best players play their best when the lights are shining. And I can't think of a bigger and better stage than the Olympics, and 2 games that, again, you're in must-win scenarios. And particularly in the fourth quarter, you were in trouble. You needed the best shooter in the world to step up, and that's exactly what Steph Curry did. And the funny thing coming away from this is a lot of people saying, so this is what it feels like to root for Steph Curry. This is what it feels like to not be on the other side of the coin here. Like, wow, he is actually a pretty great player after all.
Yeah, when you see that cheat code going up, you're like, oh, man, he's going to make it again. And that's what's been really cool about this USA Olympics team, because we've gotten a chance to get behind one. For some reason, we don't like getting behind LeBron.
Right.
Even though he's in any conversation about being the greatest basketball player of all time.
Sure.
He had his moment, and he played well in the gold medal game also. Then you see Steph. Then you see KD, who's notoriously prickly, I think might be the word.
Yeah.
He's just a prickly kind of guy.
He is, and he's gone after some folks on Twitter after winning games this week, but that's his personality. That's fine.
It's an all-time legendary performance for him. So if you did not partake in that you missed out on an opportunity to witness greatness because Steph Curry was amazing in a game when it mattered the most against a team that they had to beat. They had to beat this team because you have Wemby, you have Rudy, who, by the way, if you didn't see the story, Draymond Green, legendary hater, apparently, according to sources, flew to France only to sit behind the France bench and whisper sweet nothings in Rudy Gobert's ear.
And for those that don't remember, I think it was November of last year when the scuffle happened and Draymond had Rudy Gobert in the headlock. So these guys have a lot of animosity. Plus, like, I feel like everybody in the NBA already hates Gobert because of the COVID thing from a couple years ago. So Draymond, and look, Draymond does not let things go. We know that's his personality. Now, yes, you can frame it as he went over there to watch his buddies win the gold medal. I really think he actually went over there to hate watch Rudy Gobert.
Oh, yeah.
And he got exactly what he wanted.
100%, he definitely did. And so them winning the gold medal is tremendous.
Silky Johnson be proud. Hater of the year.
So they win the gold medal on Saturday.
Yes.
And then watching the game on Sunday, it felt like, you remember in high school when like maybe the girls team used to watch the boys or the boys team used to, you see these men who they could have went home.
Sure, totally.
They didn't have to stay. They could have been out partying. They were all on the sideline cheering for the women to close out this game, and the women did close it out. And Jen, can we get clip 22 here? And this is Asia Wilson and crew closing out France in, gotta say, a tight one. Here's the closeout. Here's the call from the closeout.
Kalia Copper has been Kalia gold today. No timeouts here. Johannes up ahead. It's Williams. That was a two. Banked it in. A two ball. And the United States is going to claim gold for the 8th consecutive Olympics. What a finish. Williams with her foot on the line.
And that game was amazing. The game was amazing. France goes up by 10 at one point, and what usually happens in those games when you're the better team, okay, the other team's up by 10, so what?
Sure,
we're going to close it down. They closed it down to 5, I believe. And I was like, all right, here we go. Now we're about to get rolling. And then France pushes it back up to 10 again.
Yep.
And then when they push it up the second time, I was like, uh-oh. This might be one of those nights where it's just the other team's night. And then you start thinking, like, you see all these French flags flying around. People got their face painted.
Well, I mean, it's their home. They're right there in their backyard. Like
all the makings of an upset.
Sure,
it was right there. They were playing well. The U.S. team was missing some shots that they normally miss. You could feel them getting a little bit tighter. All the makings of an upset, but it didn't happen.
And they were beating America at their own game. They were playing physical defense. They were making more shots from the outside, which, again, is what the U.S. women had been doing throughout the entirety of the Olympics up to this point. And again, they ran into a team that could match their style of play. And for the better part of three and a half quarters, they were besting them.
They took them literally down to the wire. And then you talk about, game of inches. If that woman takes 2 inches back, it's going to overtime.
Yeah.
And we don't probably want to play them in overtime. Again, USA was a better team. However, it just did not feel good going that far.
And on the flip side of the equation, I can't imagine how she is feeling today. Because again, you're focused on the basket and you're not looking where your feet are. And most players have that instinct of knowing where they're at all times. She probably thought she was beyond the line, only to look down and see that she was 6 inches in front of it instead. Like, I can't imagine how crushing that must be. That feeling must be.
And you could see it when the players saw it go in. Everybody was looking around.
Well, the funny thing was the French crowd, because when they showed the replay, you can see the crowd like they're like, heck yeah, we're going to overtime. And just like the slow realization as they watch the replay, to realize, oh no, that was a 2 and not a 3.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And you get a chance to see them. And again, Asia Wilson gets the claimer spot as being the most dominant basketball player in women's basketball. It was a phenomenal game. And this game led me to what's going to lead off with my Thorns, Buds, and Roses this weekend.
Okay.
It led me to the Thorns, Buds, and Roses because big thorn in my side. big thorn in my side after the gold medal game. Matter of fact, the whole Olympics is a big thorn in my side. When we come back, we'll have thorns, buds, and roses. This is Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. This is the early game.
And out there on the highways across the Midlands, man, it's been a good morning. Not seeing any major slowdowns, not any accidents reported. So happy Monday, everybody. We're looking for a high today of 91. Might see those afternoon or evening storms today and tomorrow. Tomorrow's high 88. Then we stay in the mid to upper 80s for Wednesday through Friday under cloudy skies, kind of like it is right now. It's cloudy. It is a bit muggy out there right now. Not maybe the start of a good hair day, ladies. Right now, though, it's 77 on the early game.
Welcome back into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Tyler Head, Jen Jensen. We're talking a little bit about everything, I should say. We're talking about the Olympics. We're talking about first scrimmages, talking about Asia Wilson being the most dominant basketball player in women's basketball in the world. I keep pounding on that nail because we can't take that for granted, man.
No, it's cool.
It's really cool.
Even if she didn't play at South Carolina, still just the connection of being in the state, which, by the way, for as small of a state as South Carolina is, the level of high caliber basketball talent on the men's and women's side is actually kind of insane.
Yeah, there's a per capita rate that'd be good. But you just reminded what kind of college story would that be? It'd be like she was right from Hopkins, but then she went to another school. And I wonder how I would be watching her now if she's like, she's from Hopkins, right? That's what I'd be telling everybody. But so all's well that ends well. And she went to the Gamecocks and she won us a championship. She's won at every single level, which is what you want to see from a winner.
And by the way, Dawn was having a great time over there.
Put her on the list. If we was doing top 5 folks who had a great time at the Olympics, Snoop's obviously won.
A phenomenal time.
Snoop won. Dawn Staley in the top 5.
For sure.
In the top 5 for sure. But Tyler, the gold medal games and the Olympics in general have brought me to my first thorn. And so, Jen, let's get this thorns, buds, and roses going because the Olympics have gotten me to a point where I need to get this thorn off my chest. So, here we go. Thorns, buds, and roses, Tyler. The Olympics have gotten me to a thorn.
Okay.
Tyler, I'm a sports crier.
Okay.
The sports make me cry, man.
All right. That's fair.
You put somebody winning a championship, winning a gold medal, and that's all the Olympics does. They just show all of these athletes who've worked all their life.
Entire lives.
They tell the stories. You see them battling and triumphant, and I can't help it. It just waterworks.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks on end, and I'm glad the Olympics is over because now I don't have to cry about seeing people win any more medals. It happens every single time. I can't control it. Funerals.
Yeah.
Weddings. Childbirth, nothing.
Yeah. Somebody getting a gold medal.
You give me somebody winning a championship, Tyler, I can't take it. And then France.
You didn't cry when your wife gave birth?
No, I was scared to death. No cry.
So if you had given her a gold medal, would you have cried?
If you would have put a gold medal in there, I would have been teared up. Matter of fact, that's what I should have given
Gold medal, raise the flag, and play the anthem in the delivery room.
If we could have shouted USA in that delivery room, I would have started crying, I think. I don't know what it is, man. It gets me every single time. And then, like I said, France on the other side, watching them lose.
Yes.
Watching people lose makes me cry too.
Oh, man.
So I can't take it. It's the winning, it's the losing. It's too much.
And France is a country that, we're not really at odds with, so you can feel sympathy for them when they lose. And again, players in the men's and women's side very dejected. Wembanyama was obvioly very upset, which that may be the start of his villain arc, by the way, in the NBA. So we'll see what happens
he
there.
He might be going. So, yeah, sports cry, not good for the Olympics. Buds, B stands for breakdancing. This event was made for the internet. So many clips on the internet about Ray Gun, the woman with the do-rag from Scandinavia. A very interesting pick of the events. Unfortunately, we have to nip that in the bud because there will be no breakdancing in 2028 in LA.
I'm okay with that.
Which is a shame because we're not going to get a chance to see these folks anymore. And finally, we need not 5 roses this week, 5 rings for the Olympics. Because the Olympics, for the 2 or 3 weeks or however long it lasted, it was really fantastic. Watching all the athletes, watching all these beautiful people competing in these really tough sports, the actual sportsmanship, camaraderie, all of the cool things. And then I told you all that Phoenix was my favorite band, and they performed at the closing ceremony, and it was perfect. It was made just for me. So 5 rings for the Olympics. France, you did a great job. Bravo. Oui, all that good stuff. Everything that you all say over there, y'all did an amazing job as hosts. Let's see what LA can do in 2028.
Now we have to wait 4 more years to watch women's rugby.
more time for women's rugby. So that was the thing about the Olympics. It was fantastic. And what's really cool, Tyler, is we got a chance to come in here and watch sports in the morning.
Oh, yeah. No, it was great. I mean, we had, track and field and stuff on at 6 in the morning for the past couple days, and and they played replays throughout the day, so you really got a full day's worth of stuff. So if you didn't catch something in the morning, you could watch it later in the day. They did the primetime and pair stuff on NBC every single night. Shout out to NBC in general. Their coverage was great. They had the Gold Zone thing. We could watch a bunch of things happening at once. You had multiple channels, NBC and USA and CNBC and all that stuff. So you were never lacking for content when it came to the Olympics.
Yeah, man, the Olympics were awesome, and it kind of just eased us up into football season.
Yeah,
and now we're here.
I know.
Now we're ready to go football season. You got a lot of preseason games that are happening, scrimmages that are taking place. So we are edged our way up to the season.
The next Olympics, we're going to have flag football. So there will be football within the build-up to football.
I like it. There will be some new events, but maybe we'll talk about those a little bit later in the week. That'll happen in 2028. But I said that my thorn was that I was waterworks for the whole Olympics, and that's fine. But when we come back, Tyler, I want to talk about what maybe be my actual real thorn, and that is the ACC being complete, total frauds. This is the early game. I'm Preston Thorne. That's Tyler Head. Jen Jensen. We'll be back. Percy, let me tell you about our friends at QC Kinetics. Are you suffering from pain from arthritis? Well, that's just awful. Arthritis is tough because it robs you of so much of the stuff that you love to do. And QC Kinetics is here to give you cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties and revitalizes your joints so you can move again. So if you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery are not the only options. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, and restore mobility. And they'll give you long-term relief with no downtime. The future of medicine is here, so call now for a free consultation at 803-281-6860. That's 803-281-6860. Again, 803-281-6860.
Out there on the highways, man, you've all done extremely well today. No accidents. We don't really have any major slowdowns to speak of. And we have a fairly decent forecast on tap. We'll take that as well. 91 for the high today, 88 tomorrow. Might see some afternoon or evening storms both days. But then the rain should get out of here for a couple days, so you might be able to mow your grass between Wednesday and Friday. Highs in the mid to upper 80s. Right now, though, it's overcast and 77 on the early game.
ACC, you're a fraud. Everybody, the staff, crew, record label, anybody that works in the ACC offices, anybody that's affiliated with the ACC, you need to be ashamed.
Especially the people on social media.
Especially the folks in social media. There was a phenomenon that I had my eye on early in the Olympics. It was bubbling.
Yep.
Where the folks from the ACC were claiming victories very early in the year.
Yes.
They were claiming victories from noted ACC competitors in schools that were in the institutions. Because all schools are proud. Like, we're proud.
Sure.
Quincy Hall.
Of course.
Gamecocks.
Quincy Hall legitimately was a Gamecock track athlete.
Asia Wilson. Gamecock.
Yes.
And you know when Quincy Hall and Asia Wilson, you know when they competed in Gamecock uniforms, do you know what conference they were in?
The SEC.
They were in the SEC. So let me use this logic. When they wore Gamecock uniforms, they competed in the SEC. So those medals should count towards the SEC's total medal count, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
That seems like a simple logic. So if you competed at a school that was in, I don't know, the Pac-10 or 12 when you competed there, but your school is now through conference realignment in the ACC, should the ACC be able to claim your accomplishments?
No, because you were never an ACC athlete.
I think it's a simple equation. I think it's simple.
Now, yes, that certainly makes it a little more complicated to calculate these things because we've shifted everything around. But no, I think whatever conference you competed for when you were in college. Now, if you were in the middle of a realignment, sure, both sides can claim that one. But if you only competed for the Pac-12 when you were in college, I don't think the ACC can lay claim to you.
Furthermore, if when you competed, you didn't compete in the ACC tournament, an ACC championship. So noted ACC athlete Katie Ledecky from the University of Stanford.
This is where it all really started because, and look, she cleaned house as she typically does.
Of course.
This was, at the beginning of the Olympics 2 weeks ago, where I think it was after her first gold medal that. So Stanford itself tweets things out, obviously, because she went to Stanford. And, the ACC was retweeting it. Like, that, okay, sure, strange. But when they made their own graphic was when it really crossed the line of, no, this ain't it.
I've done a not a deep dive, but just a little bit of a dive into the numbers, okay? The ACC claims that they won 98 gold medals during this particular Olympics.
Right.
Just from a very quick, let's just give me a little variance here. Let's go plus or minus one or two because I might have missed a couple.
Okay.
53 of those medals were claimed by people who were not in the ACC. 53 of those medals were claimed by institutions that were in either the Pac-10 or the Pac-12.
Right.
What are we doing?
I don't know. Let's say at your school that you coach at, right? You guys get a new head coach. Guy comes in, he's won 5 state championships at a prior school. and you start saying, we're 5-time state champions. No, that's not how this works. Those accomplishments were at another place. He's bringing that resume to your school, but he not accomplished those things at your school. You cannot hang a banner. You cannot lay claim to that. Those are his accomplishments and his only at the prior school, not yours.
It's a very simple, but I feel like this is a thing that's going to start happening more with this conference realignment. This might be something we need to look out for because you start talking about record books.
Yes.
You start talking about the way standings are kept if schools are coming from other conferences. Obviously, we have schools that are entering into the SEC for the first year with Texas and things like that. Can you start claiming certain conferences? Have we thought this all the way through, or was the ACC just the first group to really say, you know what, we're going to take advantage of where we are?
Well, and I was curious here. Unfortunately, the Pac-12's Twitter account's not very active anymore because I was like, are they also claiming these same medals too? Which, again, they have the right to because they were Pac-12 athletes like Katie Ledecky was, when she was in school, but they're not really active right now because their conference barely exists.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this plays out when we talk about conference realignment, because though this is a very silly, actually ridiculous story, it is a college sports story now.
We had a fun thing with this the other week after they tweeted the thing about Ledecky of retroactively assigning guys to new conferences. And the funny thing is, because we can laugh about saying, oh, like Aaron Rodgers was an ACC quarterback or something like that, which, that is something that's still fresh enough that we can laugh about and say, no, that's not true. But as time goes on, if you start saying these things, people believe it. Because, and not that this is the same scenario, like I wasn't alive in the 80s, but when I think of George Rogers, I think SEC running back because I've always known South Carolina to be in the SEC. So the more time goes on, the more it just becomes accepted without really thinking about it.
Wait a second. Are you telling me that the ACC can also claim Quincy Hall and Asia Wilson because South Carolina was in the ACC at a certain point in time?
Sure. Why not? Most dominant defensive player in ACC history, Jadeveon Clowney. You know what I mean? Like, we can be here all day. So you have to draw the line in the sand somewhere. Now, yes, whatever student athletes from Stanford now on go on to Olympic gold medals, sure.
Moving forward.
You can claim that at the ACC, and the Pac-12 wouldn't have any claim to that because they're not in the Pac-12 anymore. You know what I mean? But you got to draw the line somewhere. Like, we're getting ridiculous.
The lines get real fuzzy. But maybe this is just an Olympic thing, because then we had, you like Joel Embiid putting basically up his playing rights for auction. Like, I don't know. Next year I might play for Cameroon.
Right.
Maybe I'll play for. I don't think the France thing is going to happen with him anymore. I think that's
probably not. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. So there was some funny things happening with people as far as citizenships were concerned and countries. So maybe this is just an Olympic thing where people kind of move your alliances around based on what's advantageous for you. So I don't know. We'll see about that. But yeah, wanted to make sure we brought attention to that because we are in the business of calling out frauds. In ACC, you tried to pull one over on us. We're not going to let it happen. University of Stanford, University of Cal, those were not ACC institutions.
I mean, that's stolen valor, right? Like, 100%. You accomplished this on, under somebody else's banner, and now we're trying to lay claim to it. Like, that doesn't, you can't do that.
Now that we got that clear, now that we're clear on that, Preston wants to tell people to get off his lawn.
Oh, boy.
I've heard something that Shane mentioned, and I don't like it.
I thought about not including this, but I thought you might have some opinions on it, so I included it.
That's why you're the man, Tyler. When we come back, Preston tells Shane Beamer and all the football players to get off his lawn and do it the way we used to do it back in the day. This is the early game. Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Tyler Hayden. If you didn't see it, at the end of the closing ceremonies for the Olympics, Snoop and Dre got the Olympic torch, and we're bringing it to L.A.
That's right.
Snoop just can't lose, man. He's all wrapped up in it. I don't know what kind of contract he has or how much money he owes NBC, but, man, he earned every penny of it because he was everywhere. He was on the equestrian team. He was at the gymnastics competition. Everywhere, Snoop showed up.
Was he officially on assignment, or did he just take it upon himself and became the guy?
He was on assignment.
I think he was just hanging out, and they're
that would be even better.
Because here's the thing: like Snoop is so ingrained in everything.
Yeah.
You can show up and hand him a microphone, and he knows what to do. You know what I mean? So, like, hey, Snoop's going to be there. We'll try and pull him in when we can because he was there for the opening ceremonies.
Yeah.
And,
you know, he did have the logo. He had the NBC logo on his stuff. So I assumed that it was a planned thing, but it was so well done that it didn't look like it was a plan.
Yeah, he's just having fun.
Exactly.
And
Snoop being Snoop.
And that's, in France. I can't imagine what he's going to be like in his own backyard in L.A.
He'd be ready. He passed the torch. Also, with passing of the torch, we saw Tom Cruise try to take himself out. I guess he's just fascinated with this.
I have a theory about this. My wife and I showed her the clip yesterday of him descending from the top of the stadium at the closing ceremonies. And, he'd been there the entire time. They showed him in the crowd and stuff at certain events. And I said, I guarantee you, they told Tom, like, hey, we want you to be a part of the closing ceremonies. You can walk out with America and all that kind of stuff. He said, whoa, walk?
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk. There's no roof on this place. You're going to find me a bungee cord, and I'm going to descend from the heavens. Like, he can't just do it normal like everybody else. And by the way, he does his own stunts, which I give him credit for. We've all seen the clip of him, Mission Impossible, hanging on the side of that airplane. Like, that's cool, but sometimes try not to steal the show, Tom.
Well, that's the thing. This was supposed to be about the athletes.
Exactly.
And even with Snoop, I don't feel like he just totally stole the show. You were getting to enjoy him.
He was just being
enjoying the moment.
Exactly.
Right.
He didn't make it about him. Tom Cruise, this, whatever you want to call it, is stunt. It's like, that's what people were talking about coming away from the ceremonies last time.
Tom knows no other way. So that was the closing ceremonies. And that was all well and good. And I probably, this is not a thorn. But
okay.
Tyler, you included a piece of audio here.
Yes, I did.
I listened to this, and I could just feel myself tightening up. I couldn't imagine. It made me want to say all those things. Kids' hands are soft these days.
Soft hands, boy.
They don't know how good they got it. Back in my day, what are we doing with these kids? Jen, I believe it's clip number 14. This is where Shane Beamer is talking about some of the precautions that they use or they exercise for the players during the team. Jen, can you play the clip, please?
Those are not new. We've had them, I guess since my first year. I think we've had them out there, I believe. We use those, Jordan, as just what you would think, an opportunity. We have a break in the middle of practice. That's basically, we kind of tell our players it's like halftime, and it's 5 minutes. We've just had a period. It's about the halfway point of practice, probably a little bit over the halfway point of practice. Horn blows. They have to go over there and sit down and get something to drink. Yemi and our nutrition staff, they have snacks over there for them during that time. Some of them go in the tank. Most of them do. You go in there and there's 50 defensive players and 50 offensive players in those little things, and it's just they're really, really cold, as you can imagine. So it brings their body temperature down and just kind of juices them up a little bit, and then we come right back out like we tell our players. It's just like coming out of the locker room at halftime, and then we usually come out of those things right into a special teams period with Joe D, just like a game would be after halftime. You kick off or go to kickoff return. So that's what it's for and why we utilize it. We usually come out there probably till about the, first or second week of the season, and then we get rid of them and stop doing the break.
Okay. What happened to the game I love?
We used to be a proper country, I believe they would say on the internet. A lot of things happen here. What he was referring to were cooling containers in which the players can go into these cooling containers and get cooled off from the oppressive heat that they are experiencing every day. And before they go for a break, and
get
have
some
snacks.
water and snacks. And Lou didn't have that for y'all?
Again, man.
Or the orange slices,
No, your cooling station was you got lucky if a cloud went in front of the sun.
That's actually pretty accurate. All right, man. Listen, I know we have to take precautions. I do think it might be hotter now than it was when I played. I'll give them that. However, there are some things that I won't stand for. Breaks. You are forced to take a mandatory break. I don't know if that was a thing. Snacks. I could just imagine just going to the table. They probably have some Uncrustables there.
Sure.
You know, a little bit of Snickers bar.
Orange slices.
Slices. Everybody gets a nice little snack at the break.
Little juice box.
A juice box.
Some mixed nuts for some protein.
There you go. Oh,
I'm sure this
some
is
trail mix.
I'm sure it's all great stuff because they have a nutritionist also that we didn't have back then. But what's really funny to me is about this is because it just happens over time. Because when I played, way back in the time when I played, there were always players that played before us that were just saying, you guys are so soft.
Yeah.
You don't know how good you got it. You got ice in your water?
Yeah.
I can't believe you have ice in your water.
You didn't have to ram your head into a brick wall for 20 minutes every day before practice. We did.
And some of the times when I go to tell myself these football stories, it does sound like sometimes I played in caveman times because Shane is not wrong by doing these things. It's just that it's just so far removed from what I did.
It's that same perception when, today's kids talk about how much, how great they have it with their cartoons or their video games or whatever. Like, no. Back in my day, we really had it going. Like it's an ever moving goalpost essentially because whatever happened 10, 15, 20 years ago is always going to be better than what we have now.
Yeah, you'll always hear that, and you'll hear the idea of them saying, this will be one of my another rants that I'll probably go on at some point. But we refer to this time period as fall camp, and Jay Phillips, he doesn't like the idea that it's fall, and I don't like the idea that it's camp.
Okay.
But this actually sounds like camp. This sounds like summer camp because there's snacks and halftime, and maybe they'll read a story.
Yeah.
Gather around.
Go make s'mores.
Make s'mores or something like that. So shout out to all those players who were born at a greater time because football, as I've stated many times, is so much more fun than it used to be because playing for Lou Holtz, I assure you, we did not have anything.
Well, and now in the facility, you got barber shops and you got slides and you got every smoothie you could think of and all this stuff. And you guys had that Gatorade machine with multiple flavors.
We did have a Gatorade machine which had multiple flavors, but it was sort of like the McDonald's ice cream machine. And sometimes majority of the time it was not working.
Oh no.
It was along those lines. I will say this: when we did have a break with Coach Holtz. Our break consisted of going and sitting under the tower, which was the film tower,
right?
Provided maybe a slight bit of shade. And what they would do is they would take a towel, dip it in a bucket of ice. That towel would have an ammonia solution so that if anybody was close to passing out, you could just smell the ammonia and bring yourself back to life.
Nice.
Those were the good old days.
That was your cooling station.
That was what we like to call the cooling station. So yeah. This has been sponsored by Get Off My Lawn.
Oh, I love that.
Preston Thorne, back in my day. Kids are soft these days, whatever you want to call it.
You got to show those calluses. Those are calluses. That's from real man football back in the day.
Exactly. And then I would talk to my old coach. Shout out to Coach McKissick and the crew, where they used to say those fellas used to come off the farms because they wanted to play football because it was a lot easier.
Your helmets these days with all the cushions and all that stuff, too safe.
All kinds of things that these kids don't need. So I'm sure something would trigger me later. But if you don't get a chance, jump in the cooling station. Get cooler. Enjoy your time off. Thank y'all for hanging with us. It's been Preston Thorne. Tyler, thank you, man. You're the glue guy. He's been waking up. Get yourself some sleep for the rest of the week, sir. Jen, glad to have you back. Tomorrow, Bill comes back with his dossier of information. This is the early game. Hey guys, it's Preston for your broker, my broker, Benji Getzy at Buford Lending. Buford Lending is a true mortgage broker offering the widest variety of government programs